Well, today is an important day because Carvajal is leaving us. At least that's what both he and Real Madrid have announced. It seems more than certain, although it's not official, that Mourinho will arrive. We already knew it, but well, Fabrizio Romano and others have already anyway. We already know that Mourinho is coming here. Who would have thought? Quick shout out to Kike. Remember a year, 2, 3, or 4 ago when everyone said it was impossible for him to come? And then the topic of elections that we're also going to talk about, as well as the positions that Real Madrid needs to strengthen and everything that's being talked about now. And that surely Kike has also mentioned on his channel. Kike, how are you? Hey man, how's it going?
How's it going? Hey there.
We have quite a menu, quite a lineup, starting with the most recent, right? With the announcement about Carvajal. Look, things are happening that we all already knew about, obviously, but that doesn't make them any less impressive or striking. I mean, even though there are people who have criticized Carvajal in recent months and so on, I think he's leaving. One of the, I don't know where we would rank him or what position we would put him in the ranking, but I think as a Real Madrid figure, among the top 10 for sure, but I could even say among the top 5 for everything he has won, right? And for what he has meant, right?
At least from what I can tell about the best right backs in Real Madrid's history, I am sure he's top 3, and for me, the best. Yeah, and I would put on that list from the ones I followed. I'm 40 years old, so obviously that limits me. But from what I've seen in that top 3, I would put Panucci, Salgado, Carvajal. Yes. And I think Carvajal has been the most consistent. Yes. Performance and titles, he has had an impact on those titles. So for me, clearly he's a legend. Aside from things like captaincy and statements, of course,
people are going to go for the jugular and say, no, he was a bad captain and all that, right? Well,
look, for me, Iker Casillas was a terrible captain and an extraordinary historic goalkeeper. Yes. And for you, I mean, I think here we need to put aside likes and dislikes a bit. I mean, when we talk about someone like Carvajal, who has played so many years at the elite level, sometimes better, sometimes worse, but who has lasted so long at the highest level, well, hey, I think that deserves some credit. So at this moment of gratitude, what I'm going to do is focus on the positive. And Carvajal has been an exceptional footballer within the limitations he may have had at certain times. But the connection he has had with the Real Madrid badge, the fight, the drive, the character, that is to say, he has brought something to a Real Madrid full of superstars. He's in a different area and at a different level, but still a very high level, right? So for me, he deserves a lot of credit. For him, the 2012-2013 season was decisive when he went to Bayer Leverkusen. That year, he went out on loan, and if I remember correctly, won the award for best right back ahead of Philipp Lahm. If I'm not mistaken, if I am, someone in the chat can correct me. And he left right in Mourinho's last season, interestingly enough. He trains, he even gets to train with the first team in the summer, but both he and other players went out to make their own way, right? And that worked out really well.
Yes. And then it happened with other footballers, of course. Maybe the clearest example, I mean, the one we never thought could return to Real Madrid after a long time away was Joselu, right? His brother-in-law, precisely, right? And look, but that embodies it. Well, that's what Real Madrid wants, for him to be a homegrown player, right? But also in Carvajal's case, even more so. I mean, I think, look, we remember the Quinta del Buitre. I mean, well, Butragueño, Michel, Raúl, Iker Casillas, there are legendary homegrown players at Madrid, but this one, on top of that, lays the first stone with Di Stefano. I mean, he wins 6 Champions Leagues. This is the video he posted there. He scores a goal in the last Champions League, a header after a corner kick. It's pretty much perfect. Let me see if I can find the image. I don't think it shows up here, does it? The image of Carvajal with Di Stefano, but well, we all have it in our minds, right? Him laying the foundation stone for the Valdez training complex. I mean, his career has been perfect in that sense, except for the last year, of course, because of what happened. Also because of the injury he had and this whole captaincy issue. And what I want to contribute here, because we have to talk about reality, is that this year there's been a real situation with Carvajal and a whole story that we'll learn more about over time, about how that relationship with Arbeloa was and so on. But it really bothers me, Kiki, man, that even with Casillas, today Casillas says something or posts a tweet, man, and people call him a mole, say he was crap. I don't know what happened. There's so much toxicity there, and you might think he wasn't crucial, like you say, but why so much toxicity? Man, no. I mean, let's not turn our backs on reality. Let's analyze things. Let's talk about them. But going from that to insults, and people who have guarded Real Madrid's goal in Iker's case, or played in defense in Carvajal's case, and they've won so many Champions Leagues, they've been so important. Man, I think this is a really, really ugly thing.
In the end, social media, including YouTube, all the social networks where comments and opinions are shared, often serve as a place for people to vent. And a lot of people, their bitterness or frustration, they take it out on social media. They need social media to somehow fill that lack of self-esteem, right? At least that's my way of understanding it. For me, Casillas' captaincy wasn't great, and Carvajal's is better but still not ideal. However, that doesn't take away from their performance, which is what really matters, even as they eventually decline. Carvajal had it. Casillas was very clear. Carvajal had a turning point, which was his knee, which got wrecked. And from that moment on, Carvajal couldn't compete at the highest level anymore. With his age, his knee, the injuries, all the problems, so it's normal. This year had to be the farewell, and a proper farewell, of course, because you have to know how to say goodbye. In Madrid's case, there have been times they've known how to say goodbye, and other times not so much. I believe they'll handle Carvajal's farewell well and say goodbye properly.
Yes, that ranking you mentioned of Salgado, Panucci, and Carvajal, how would you rank them? For me, Carvajal, Salgado.
Panucci or Carvajal? Yes.
Carvajal, Salgado, Panucci, I think, right?
I would put Carvajal, Panucci, and Salgado because I'm a big fan of Panucci, but that's a very personal thing, very particular. But anyway,
Panucci wasn't there for long. Of course, there will be people who say Chendo, right? Chendo too, right? Of course.
Chendo, the people who are over 50 and the veterans I have on the channel. Chendo, legendary defender, extraordinary marker. But of course, I couldn't really follow Chendo at all. When I started watching soccer, Chendo was already the captain, but more discreet, So I can't really judge him well from that time.
He shut down Maradona in a closed-door match against Napoli during that incredible year for Madrid in the European Cup that ended with the Jota, right?
With PSV Eindhoven.
88, which ended with the unfortunate elimination against PSV, but Madrid had knocked out the champion, the reigning European champion at that time, which was Porto. Napoli, then Bayern Munich, and then I don't know if I'm missing any, and then PSV, which seemed the easiest. Man, semifinals to play the final. I think it was the one PSV won. I don't remember who PSV beat in that final, but yes. Will there be anyone who says, no, you don't put Arbeloa? No.
I would make a point, but of course he ended up as a center back. Sergio Ramos had a time when he was an amazing fullback. Yes, of course. Important in leagues like Capello's, for example, or Bernd Schuster's league as well. He has a period where he starts as a center back in 2005, 2006, if I remember correctly, which is the year Ramos, Robinho, and others arrive. He plays as a center back in that debut against Celta, if I remember correctly. And then I think Capello is the one who plays him at right back. He also made a huge impact for the Spanish national team at right back, since Gerard Piqué and Carles Puyol were the center backs. So, well, you could put an asterisk next to Ramos, right? Because in terms of performance, he had 3 or 4 really good years as a right back. So, until later, well, actually, with Mourinho, wait, I'm just remembering as I talk.
Mourinho already played him at center back, but I don't know if he used him at right back in the first year.
Exactly, because Pepe and Ricardo Carvalho also played a lot as center backs besides Albiol and so on. So there was Arbeloa and Ramos in that hybrid fullback role. I think he also played as a fullback at some point with Mourinho, if I remember correctly.
But anyway, where Ramos really settled as a center back was under Mourinho. And this gives me a segue into the Mourinho topic, who today, well, it hasn't been made official yet, but it's basically unofficially official because Fabrizio Romano has already said it. Not just because he says it, or Mario Cortegana, or David Ornstein, well, Sergio Valentin, who has been reporting on this for a long time. He also deserves credit for this operation. I was just looking at an incredible tweet. I swear I didn't have this prepared. It's crazy, man. People are really messed up in the head, Kaike.
Let's see.
Let's take a look. At Fabrizio Romano's tweet, okay? Here, the Hibrico, who I've nicknamed Hibrimo. Emilio Domenech says, he's that really short guy, the one who talks about politics on La Sexta. Well, he's been in the United States. I don't know if he still lives there. And now he's here. These are people who are very obsessed, okay? With things. He says the rise of the far right in Spain can only be understood with the first arrival of Mourinho at Real Madrid. His second coming can only mean the failure of the ultras in our country, the beginning of the end. If you want, don't comment. It's just that I just came across this and I thought, well, this can't be, man. People are really messed up in the head, man. It's just, well,
mixing, in this case, like Emilio Domenech does, both politics and soccer usually doesn't turn out well. Yes, and the argument is really, for me, very distorted. But, well, that's my opinion, and I'm not going to go any deeper. I think there's an interest on his part because of ideological positioning. But anyway, nothing more to say.
Anyway, Kike, this is going to be used a lot. Let's see. I mean, now in Madrid, he's always been made out to be the bad guy and everything. And look, I mean, let's see. The thing is, people here can't understand why we see shades of gray where everyone else sees things in black and white, right? And you and I, we're really into seeing shades of gray and putting things into context and all that. I'm not saying Mourinho coming to Real Madrid is bad. It's just that a year, 2, 3, or even 5 years ago, we couldn't have imagined it at all. I mean, I don't see it as such a bad thing because of the locker room situation. I think he could be one of the right people. And now you'll give me your opinion to change things in there and start with discipline and bringing the locker room together. And then we'll look at the football side, okay? I think Mourinho could excel at that, even though he's not in his prime. And I'm not going to say he's outdated, but honestly, when you start looking at the successful coaches, Mourinho isn't in that top 10 list, to be honest. Since Madrid is a special club, they sign him again. That's why I say it should make us think. Even though we're happy that Mourinho might come, and let's be clear, he's Florentino's coach. Let's see if there's an election process. That's what we're going to talk about next. But it seems that Florentino Perez will continue to be the president of Real Madrid. And therefore, Mourinho is coming as coach, but it should make us think that our club, Real Madrid, is such a special club that it had now signed Jose Mourinho. And will there be trouble? There will be trouble. Paco Gonzalez in the cup says, what's this? And the other one, whatever. There's going to be a war, because even if Mourinho comes with good intentions or, tries to smooth things over a bit with journalists, with Anton Meres, whatever, they're going to give him more of a hard time than the other way around, because they're already waiting for him. I mean, we're already seeing messages like that with Mourinho not even having spoken yet as Real Madrid's coach, as it couldn't be any other way, and without messing with anyone.
There's a lot of talk, right, about Mourinho's communication style in response to the traditional press we have here, because it's always the same. In Spain, of course, the transition, right? Exactly. So the thing is, I think Mourinho ended up, this is just what people say, not because I have any inside information, but if this is true, it's been mentioned that he ended up very worn out by the back and forth with the press. I think that now, after some time has passed, maybe he will ask for someone who can contribute and help with communication. Not a Butragueño, but a different kind of profile. We'll see who it is. Because, look, Mourinho, if he has to get down in the mud, he's going to keep doing it. There will be tense moments, people waiting for him. We've gone through a very curious phase, Miguel, with Xavi Alonso, who really didn't have any enemies in the press, except for Juanma Rodriguez, and that was for ideological reasons. Then, on the other hand, yes, because that's how it is, he was my boss, but...
Sorry to interrupt. It's unbelievable. Just for ideological reasons. It's unbelievable. I may not agree with Xavi on everything either, but honestly, people really take it to the extreme.
Exactly. When you twist things, the problem is that your ideological bias takes over and you start looking for fallacious arguments to reduce a footballing context to just the coach. So, going from Xavi Alonso to Arbeloa, Xavi Alonso practically had no enemies, while Arbeloa did have a few more enemies within the press. Obviously, because Arbeloa, among other things, was very closely aligned with Mourinho, and that created conflict for him, more so than with Xavi Alonso. He got along well, but Arbeloa did even more due to his personality and approach. And then now we get to Mourinho. I mean, we've digivolved into an even higher level of media and communications tension with the sports press, which actually seen up to a certain point isn't a bad thing, because as the years have gone by, we have to admit that Mourinho was right about a lot of things. We often noted that despite his strong defense of Benfica, since they paid him, sometimes you'd wonder, how can Mourinho say that? But going back to Madrid, Mourinho will once again be, in part, not exactly the same, but in part, the Mourinho he was before. In the sense that he, when it came to playing, complained a lot about contextual issues, refereeing, and time has proven him right. So we'll see how all of this plays out within Real Madrid as a club, if we're going to have a Mourinho who takes people on in the same way. He needs someone who can also fight and work on the communication front, an area where, by the way, Madrid tends to be quite weak when it comes to communication. I'm very curious, Miguel. First, the sporting and tactical side, and just as important, the egos and the locker room, which we'll analyze later, but also this area, right? This fundamental triangle of basic actions. Let's see how the Portuguese coach handles it.
Yes, because it's going to be quite an entrance. Wow, this really reminds me of 2010, man. In 2010, Mourinho started coaching, and this year, 2026, he's going to coach Real Madrid. The World Cup song was Waka Waka, and it was also sung by Shakira. And things happened during that World Cup and that summer. But well, we'll have time to talk about the World Cup later. But I don't know, right? It's curious, isn't it? Things happen that we never thought would occur. Just like we didn't think just a few weeks ago or even days that there wouldn't be an electoral process at Real Madrid. In the past few hours, as I noted in El Confidencial, they've said Enrique Riquelme will run. Surprisingly, just 2 days ago, they insisted it was impossible. And then also because of the rush, because of the very little time he'll have to present something, to quote him directly, it has to make sense. But if he's going ahead with that, then it clearly does. What do you think?
I think Enrique Riquelme was at a crossroads. On one hand, the timing supposedly doesn't benefit him, but of course, there have already been two situations where, in the end, the opportunity to run never materialized. 21 and 23, I don't remember the exact year. I remember when I started making videos, we began discussing Riquelme. So Riquelme didn't have many more options in case he had the financial backing. And now that he has it, he has the financial power for it. He meets the requirements. It's a matter of if he doesn't run now, he has to present himself to the Madrid fans. He's at a point of no return. He knows he's going to lose. And you and I, like everyone else, we know it. 99%. Something really strange would have to happen for this guy to win. Yes. But he has to do in life, usually the things that work for me are long-term. So I think Riquelme has to take a stand. He has to stand up to such an iconic figure in Madridismo if he wants to win. I'm talking about members and delegates at Real Madrid. So he at least has to face this situation, to face. So there's convincing the public Real Madrid fan base and the private side of it, meaning the club members. So he has to start getting his name out there already. You, me, the evil YouTubers, the journalists, etc. We know and are aware of Riquelme. But if you ask people on the street, I'm going right now to ask at the Bernabeu, do you know Enrique Riquelme? A lot of random Madrid fans won't know him, of course. Even some club members, unless they're in Eugenio Martinez Bravo's circle and so on, they don't know who Riquelme is. They don't know who Enrique Riquelme is. So Riquelme has to face the situation, knowing that he's going to lose, but he has to try to lay the groundwork for when Florentino Perez stops being president and there are new elections. Because due to age, if Florentino is, let's say, 85 years old in the next elections, or 84, I don't know, not right now. So there will be someone, I guess, who will run in Florentino Perez's candidacy. I'm not going to say the name, but we all have an idea who it could be. I guess that's just how I am. I sometimes jump ahead. But there will be a challenger. So I gather this man wants to be the challenger.
Of course. And Florentino lost an election to Mendoza.
In 95, yes.
Yeah, of course. And we already knew him in 2000, although I think that if he hadn't gone with Figo, I think he wouldn't have won. What?
And then the thing is,
of course, the issue of the mail-in vote, because this man doesn't have access to the membership census, to the list of members. He has a lot more difficulties than Florentino, who, from his position of power, has a pretty clear advantage when it comes to the mail-in vote. I think in this sense, either Enrique Riquelme presents something really powerful.
And something really impressive.
Very impressive. He might have a deal with a club or a major signing of a top football player. It might be tough, but like you said, it's just about getting his name out there for now.
That's a must, getting his name out there for now. And from there, start planting seeds. I think what he has to do is focus on the long term. In fact, people around him like Pela Milatovic, who spoke on Sir, he's a collaborator on El Larguero, if I remember correctly. Pela advised him not to run. That's what his people recommended. Apparently, he has contact with a certain sector of the Real Madrid world, meaning former players. He has that going for him. And then he also has what to me is a real drawback as a candidate. And it's been assumed that he has close ties with certain media people far from Real Madrid, very far. They've even mentioned Gil Marin. Actually, Pepe Alvarez mentions it on the lower right of the image. There's also a lot of forces working against this man because obviously there are people who have no interest at all in having anyone other than Florentino Perez as president. We already know how this goes. There are people who campaign against Florentino and there are people who campaign against Riquelme. Why? Even though I think they're unnecessary since this man won't win, that's just how it is. So I think right now he has too much baggage to be able to compete and win, but he has to face the situation. If not, he'll never make himself known.
Of course. Now, and just to finish, let's not be naive. I mean, when Florentino first ran for election, he was still a bit greener, of course, right? But in the second one, winning over people from the press, being close maybe to former players, starting to make a name for himself and using, well, money and, well, that's the way these people operate, right? Here, Kijk. You and I can't really imagine it, but obviously they have to use their own tools. The thing is, maybe this man is being accused of things that I think Florentino back in 2000 also did in a very smart and legal way, right?
Yes, but in the case of Florentino, what he did very well, for example, back then, I remember I must have been 16 or 17. I was a teenager, but I do remember he, for example, would go to Telemadrid, to Javier Reyero's show, and he would lay out his platform. And a lot of it was that, of course, there were no social media. Everything was print media, radio. The radio was huge. There was Cope. There was Jose Maria Garcia, who was very distant from this, but also Jose Ramon de la Morena. Florentino Perez would show up at the radio stations. Florentino Perez, I mean, things have changed a lot, but Florentino Perez was a man who, at a certain point, knew he had to get close to the media, win them over. That was the way. Now, how? Now, there's the whole spectrum of social media. And let's see how Riquelme handles this. Because to get into Real Madrid, in terms of the media, you need the internal side, which is convincing the club members who are the ones that vote for you, selling a project, like you said, a lot of excitement, that kind of thing. But also on the outside, the noise, trying to make sure the noise isn't too much. There's a lot of noise around him and the chatter around him isn't good, right?
Isn't it because of his connection with Gil Martin and all that?
Yes, yes. And then, well, there are issues there about the son-in-law of Iberdrola. Well, a lot of things that people talk about what could be behind it. It's just that there's a lot of coming and going here, of course.
It's easy for him. He just needs to start talking. If he's going to be in the spotlight, he must speak clearly and say, ask me what you want to know about this. Of course. And he explains it, of course. The best marketing campaign he can do for himself is to go out and talk and see what things they've said about him. Just go bam, bam, bam. That's what I think. I don't know. Also for Riquelme, right?
And Riquelme, by the way, the one who puts him in the spotlight and makes him take a chance is Florentino. Again, because he wants in some way to make himself even stronger in view of the change in the club's ownership model. For me, that's going to be the final legacy, that the concert thing is fine, that it's going to be left behind, that's fine. But the real legacy that Florentino Perez wants to leave, in my opinion, as a Madrid fan, and I could be wrong, I think it's the change in the club's ownership model. He already hinted at it, talking about each member having he didn't say share, he made a comment. If someone remembers it, please mention it in the chat. I'm sure you have a better memory than I do. But that's the main goal. Aside from hinting about the sports situation in the media and so on, Florentino Perez's goal is that the ownership model. And for that, he needs to strengthen his position with the members by winning an election and trying to back the opposition into a corner.
Of course, and explain it well. The ownership model. Explain it very well. Of course, Florentino will have to do it. But look, it leads me to the following conclusion, although it slows things down a little, which I don't think is that much either. Because if Mourinho, I think Florentino is going to come out on top. Mourinho will come and all that. He'll already be talking to players. Juarez, they'll already be looking into things a bit for planning purposes. The fact that Real Madrid has an electoral process and debate now after 20 years without elections because no one challenged Florentino is already a good thing, man. The club isn't owned by the members, but let them speak and have a debate.
Here's what the president said, and I agree with Florentino. Let the members speak. That's why he kind of needs it, because with 2.5 years left, you might ask, why hold elections now? Well, I think it's precisely to strengthen himself for everything he wants to take on.
Of course. Kike, thank you so much, man. Everyone, keep following Madridismo Al Dia, Kike Recio's channel. Make sure to subscribe and also to this one and give this video a like. We'll talk soon, man. Big hug.
Big hug. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.